Hi, my name's Susie Morgan, and I'm Precision EMDR's founder and director of training. And I wanted to talk to you today about why we are Precision EMDR, or actually, more importantly, why precision is really important with EMDR therapy. And there's really three major pieces that I want to cover today. And it's really looking at this idea of precision in determining readiness and actually preparing our clients for readiness. And then secondly, it is this idea that we can have precision in really important ways in how we determine which trauma memories we are going to start with and how we're going to treatment plan, essentially sequence the targets that we are going to process with EMDR therapy in order to create the most generalization, the most kind of pervasive results from the work that we do in a way that moves the needle the most for our clients in the symptoms that they're struggling with. And then thirdly, what we're looking at is this idea of how do we use all of the information that we have gathered strategically in our preparation and history gathering process in order to really be able to make pinpointed interventions when we are in reprocessing so that we can help our clients move through what are predictable blocks if we've done adequate preparation. And this whole idea of precision is this idea of personalized medicine in a sense, but it's personalized mental health or personalized EMDR therapy, personalized trauma therapy, with this idea that when we have a client who's coming in with complex developmental trauma, meaning that they might have big T traumas, they might have all sorts of adverse life events throughout the course of their life, as well as early developmental needs that weren't met, attachment needs that weren't met. So there wasn't the sense of security, of nurture, of protection, of guidance, all of the different things that a little human needs. Like we are looking at all of that and being able to say, okay, how do we move forward in a way that is safe and effective for this client? And how do we work in a way that is really designed for them, and we're not just sloppily applying a one size fits all overly simplistic model into our approach. So let's start off with the first aspect of things, and readiness is really the piece that came to my attention the most as a budding EMDR therapist. So I have been doing EMDR therapy now for 20 years. And when I was trained back in the day, where it was basically horses and buggies, we didn't have anything that was really guiding us in terms of this concept of readiness for trauma memory processing. And we really didn't have target sequencing. We didn't have any of that stuff. And so it was really about kind of figuring it out and figuring it out kind of trial by error. And so what I started to see was if I very carefully looked at the data that I was able to observe when I was doing some of the standard preparation procedures like calm place or container, or gathering information about major traumas in the client's history or even triggers, I was able to really get an idea of what that client's brain could do. Could that brain have state change, which is this idea of moving from calm or upset to calm? Could they have attention shifting? Could they move away from the trauma material in order to be able to contain our work from the EMDR processing session and move through their daily life? Or on, even more complex levels, did they have the adaptive information available that was necessary for them to be able to even effectively process through a trauma memory network or a trauma memory target and have it connect up to adaptive information? And even did they have tolerance for really tolerating that positive information? Because there are definitely clients who feeling positive feels unsafe to them. It feels too unsettling. It's not an okay place to go, or it's not even okay really for them to become healthy for certain reasons that are really burdensome and important and necessary to address on the upfront. Otherwise, it's just going to get in the way on the back end. And so what I started to look at was this very precise way in which we could sequence our preparation exercises and even our history gathering in order to do the tasks themselves, give our clients those state change tools and those affect management strategies and all of that. Give our clients, that opportunity to really explain their story to us in a way that allowed us to really kind of map that trauma history. But meanwhile, have eyes to see what is that brain, what is that nervous system able to do? And that way we can very pinpointedly say, this client is having a hard time with state change. It doesn't feel okay to move from this state of upset to a state of calm and to use those tools. So how do we strengthen that? It doesn't appear that this client has a lot of adaptive information that we really need them to have in order to kind of counter these trauma memory networks that we know we're going to have to treat. So how do we build that in? But we know that from the upfront. And probably even one of the most important things is, are we able to see in a very clear way what this client's early attachment experience was? Did it have nurture? Did it have protection? Did it have guidance? Did it have play? Did it have consistency, reliability? There's these key features that are so, so important for that secure early attachment to develop. And if not, then what we need to be able to do is know, is there other adaptive information available from that client's adult life? Or are we having to build that all in preparation prior to us getting started? However, let's say there's a lot of those things in place. We don't need to spend a lot of time resourcing. We don't need to delay reprocessing. We can jump in knowing that the brain has what we need for it to grab onto. And so in summary, it's this idea of doing those initial processes with our clients with a real intended, purposeful, like secondary process where we're observing what the brain can do as we are doing those preparation and history gathering tasks. And then if we see any aspect of readiness that really just isn't quite there, then we pause. We dwell there for a bit. We develop that out so that what happens when we get into trauma memory reprocessing, we are ready to go. We have that sense that this is going to be safe, this is going to be effective, and we're going to be able to help that client resolve whatever it is that we are lighting up in their nervous system. Because the worst thing we want to do is light up a trauma memory, full living color, and then the client's brain gets stuck on one of these things that we could have been proactive to prevent and to prepare for, and we could have had eyes to see. So readiness is the first component that I feel like is so key, and is the first one that for me became really clear as a clinician, that said, like, I really can change the course of treatment with someone if I am very strategic and specific up front in terms of what we're doing and looking for those aspects of readiness and preparing them. So then the second really important area, I think, that we can be precise in our treatment comes in really gathering very specific information about the trauma memory networks that are driving the client's symptoms. I think one of the key things that we're wanting to do is really figure out, okay, this client has these symptoms. So how do we kind of create this link between those symptoms and all the way back to the trauma memory networks that are driving them? And how do we understand how these symptoms are being triggered by those trauma memory networks? So it's this sort of thread back from symptoms to triggers to trauma memory networks. And then kind of in reverse order, as we resolve trauma memory networks, we're going to see changes in frequency, duration, and intensity of those triggers. And we're going to see an overall reduction in symptoms. But we're only really going to see that in a really substantial way if we're strategic about it. And so there's a few kind of key components I think that go into this. And one is really understanding that the brain organizes memories around meaning, because memories are all about learning. It's what the brain and the nervous system hold on to say, okay, this is how I can predict the future. Or when it comes to trauma, bottom line is that we we need to be able to map out what it is that the the learning that we've been through, the experiences that we've been through have taught us about safety, about ultimately our lovability or our worth or our power or whatever the case might be, belonging, all these core key things. And what we need to be able to do is see how the brain has organized the experiences as learning, what has been learned, and how is that connected to what the client is showing us in terms of symptoms. So what we want to do is gather very strategic information. And so one of the things I like to do is to sort of take a net into the past and take a net into the present, and then do a bit of decoding. And so what we do with that is we take this net into the past and we say, okay, top 10 memories. Doesn't really matter if those are all the key memories that really are going to be a part of the therapy that we do with our client, because the nervous system will show us as we do this process where exactly we need to focus. But what we do is we take those top 10 memories and we kind of drill it down to what is the primary thing that nervous system has learned from each one of those memories. So what we're able to see is this idea that there can be this whole set of memories that taught the nervous system, I'm not lovable, or that taught the nervous system, I'm not safe. And then what we'll also do is we'll take a net into the present. We'll look at those triggering events, those things that just throw the client off or just send their whole nervous system into a symptomatic uproar. And we decode those as well. And we really drill it down to what is the primary meaning that is showing up in those triggers. So we're seeing in the present, okay, these types of events create this sense of I'm not lovable. And it creates this sense of, or I'm not safe, or whatever the case might be. And we're able to say, okay, these triggers are about I'm not lovable. These triggers are about I'm not safe. And then we're able to say, okay, and these past memories are about I'm not lovable. And these other past memories are about I'm not safe. So we're able to kind of see those connectors, and see those clusters of past memories linking to present triggers, past memories linking to present triggers. And then we're taking it a step further and we're saying, okay, and when these things are triggered, when I'm not lovable is triggered, ooh, the types of symptoms that I see are relational. We see this sort of anxious attachment stuff coming up, this sense of, maybe it's with this client, it's I must please others in order to be safe, or I must consider others' needs as more important than mine, something like that. Or let's say it's like I'm not safe. And so what we're seeing in that kind of present symptomatology is this sort of withdrawal, this staying home, this almost shutting down, because if I go out, if I risk, I'm not safe and something bad is going to happen. So it's better if I just shut down in sort of this depressed state. And so what we're really trying to do is really have eyes to see each of those things. And we're really able to map that out. And by being able to map that out, that's when we have our idea of like, okay, if I need to move these depressive symptoms, I'm going to treat that I'm not safe. If I really want to move this sort of like relational, anxious attachment style stuff that I'm seeing, well, then I'm going to work on I'm not lovable in those memories that really drove that. And then even more importantly is this idea of the adaptive information memory network. And I alluded to this earlier. We're really needing to see those early qualities of attachment, and we can very strategically query for those in our history gathering in order to really determine, okay, this is what what is showing us that this client had some attachment needs met, but not, but also some damage done during that time period. And also on top of that, it will show us that, let's say, like, how that early attachment was really anemic. However, what we have in these later attachment relationships is some stuff that's really solid. Maybe not in romantic relationships, but there's a few friends or there's a mentor here that really provided secure attachment. Or we're able to see, oh, that client's really able to provide something for their own children or their own pets, as the case might be, that they weren't able to receive from the from their own parents, from their own childhood. So we're looking for all of that. And then bottom line, what happens where this all comes into play in such an important way is then when we are doing the trauma memory reprocessing, we are able to strategically choose, like, let's say we want to move that needle on the I'm unlovable because we really are seeing this client suffer because of that anxious attachment system that they've got going on, anxious attachment strategies that they're showing. And so what we want to do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to take this memory network that has all those past memories that have to do with I'm lovable. We're going to fill in the blanks with any other key memories that we can identify that are kind of supporting evidence for that client that they're not lovable, even though we know that's not true. And then we're also going to have in mind this idea of, what do I know about their adaptive information memory network? What can I see in advance is going to maybe get in our way or is going to help be a support if we get stuck? So for instance, if this client is getting stuck and we know they have this sense of, like they really know how to be this really loving, secure parent for their children, even though that's not what they received, we're able to bring that in to help with those early memories of trauma where their developmental needs and attachment needs weren't met, and help them be there for little them and know that they are able to provide those nurturing skills. But we also might know that, because of that early anemic attachment and some damage done perhaps with their mother, their father, their primary caregivers, that maybe we're going to run into a sticky situation there. And so we're already ready to do things like pull in strategic attachment repair interweaves, knowing that we might suggest that they come in and be that kind of parent for their little self that they're able to provide for their child. But we also have in our mind, we also might run into some obstacles there. And so we're ready to bring in strategic attachment repair interwaves. So the whole idea here with why precision EMDR, why do we need to provide this personalized method, and what is the point of it, is that we can, from the very beginning, be doing things that allow us to move forward in an efficient and a safe and effective way, in a way that allows us, first of all, to really understand what we need to do in terms of readiness, if we can move forward right away, if we really need to do some front loading work, how we're going to strategically understand the trauma memory networks and their connections to triggers and symptoms that are causing problems for our clients in the present, where exactly we want to focus our treatment and why, and then also how to know kind of what we might run into when we get in there, and how can we use all of this information we've strategically gathered to be ready for that and prepared, so we can anticipate what we might need to be able to do. And then we're able to much more surgically intervene when we hit those obstacles. So thank you so much for joining me for this. And if you have questions for me, post them in the comments. Feel free to shoot me an email at susie@precisionemdr.com. Follow us on Instagram at Precision EMDR or Facebook. And I'm just really curious. I'd love to hear your reflections on, what do you think about this idea of precision as an approach to EMDR therapy? And is that different or similar than how you were trained and how you have been providing EMDR therapy? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you so much.